Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tom Evans, what did you do?
Right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Director Avila?
Here.
Director Dennert?
Here.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray? And Chair O'Brien?
Here. Agenda review.
Thank you, Chair. Staff has no recommended changes. I do have one letter to read into the record regarding when we get to the drone item.
Okay. Great, thank you. Item 4, public statements for items not on the agenda. I have one card. Sanjay, come on up.
Hello, everybody. Hey, I'm a resident in Simi Valley. I have a couple of kids, and my son, my daughter, they're very young and they want to play golf. And I see that it's a public course, and they don't give our kids any break or anything, and it's very expensive. Instead of taking the kids in somewhere else, save my time, and if it's reasonable here, I appreciate that. I want my kids to close to my house, close to the school, and save my time. And of course, the money is very important too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chair, if I could just clarifying factually, we do give a discount for youth, and it's fairly significant. So I'll call the gentleman and explain it to him.
Okay. Thank you. And any other people wish to speak about items not on the agenda? Nobody online, I'm guessing. Okay.
No, there is somebody online. Hello.
Oh, okay,
It's
hello.
Raymond.
Yes. You're on.
Hey there.
Hi.
It's Harry Midnight. I just want to say I'm so grateful to you, Kate, and others for planting that story in the Acorn about the Oak Park community duck pond and the renovation of it. I think that the empathy that was shown in the Acorn will go a long way, talking about how people have been frustrated for 3 years and how you share the pain and you're excited for the dedication, which will be this Friday. So we're all super excited in Oak Park. So thank you for that great story. I just thought it was fantastic. Another thing I want to be thankful for is for the staff with Nikki Davey at the helm of the filming permit. There's a movie that just came out at home called Everything Everywhere All at Once that has 2 scenes in the film shot at RSRPD properties at Corriganville Park and at Rocky Point. This film will be nominated for an Oscar for Best Picture this year, guaranteed. Michelle Yeoh, Best Actress. And the fact that we can say it was shot in Simi Valley, thanks to Nikki Davey, is amazing. The film takes place in Simi Valley, so anyone has seen the film, you will love it. And I highly recommend it, but many thanks to Nikki Davey for what she's doing. There's a program next Saturday night on the 25th of June at Corriganville Park where they'll be showing how the West was won. It'll be a great family event. The historian Greg Anderson will be there. John Wayne is in the movie at Corriganville Park playing William Tecumseh Sherman, so everybody should show up. But anyway, thank you for all the work that your staff is doing. Thank you for showing the empathy towards Oak Park, and we're super excited about the duck pond getting renovated. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online like to make a comment about something not on the agenda?
Yes, I want to make a comment.
My name is Trevor Williams.
It's okay, go ahead, Tony.
I just have a couple points to bring up. We're trying to keep our kids off the streets, and some of the kids that are really involved with golf, some of them can't afford it. Lemon Park, the water park up there, it's free of charge to go up there and play at the water park. Football courts or football fields, basketball courts, baseball fields are all free to go ahead and get their exercise and play and enjoy themselves. I don't understand why our kids that golf have to get charged. Going into Simi Hills Golf Course, there's a pond there that has a lot of maintenance that has to be done, and nobody gets charged to to fish there. As a parent, to go out and spectate at Simi Hills Golf Course, we get charged between $18 and $32 just to walk on the grass. We're not golfing. We're just walking around, watching our kids play. And I'm not really understanding that. Harley Bowl, that's right down the street from Simi Hills, privately owned bowling alley. They have a program where it's, I don't know the exact dollar amount, I believe it's $70 for the summer, just for kids to come and bowl. We should be able to come up with some type of program. If it's a monthly membership for Simi Hills Golf Course, whether we pay 20 bucks or 40 bucks, for the kids to be out there to keep them off the streets and keep them safe. There's the heroin pandemic out here in Simi is pretty crazy. And we don't want our kids going down that road.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Yes, I want to speak for a few minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes.
My name is Moti Balyan, and I met with your staff, Dan, and I spoke to Dan regarding this program, and he said that our total revenue is more than 4 million, and we are netting more than 400,000, but we are not going to give a single penny discount to the kids. Similar, this department is only that don't want to do any single thing for the kids. Everybody else want to keep the kids away from the street, from the guns, from the violence, and from everything. And Similar is making so much money, 400,000 net they are netting, and they say we need it for the capital investment. But they don't want to do for the kids. He said if you want to do something for your kids, take him to the private golf club like Wood Ranch or anything. So that is not acceptable. This is a public place. It's done by the public. It's for the public. It's maintained for the public. And by paying so much money for the kids, and I discussed with him. He said that if your kids are in the golf team, they can come with the team and practice. Golf season is 4 months. Out of 4 months, kids play 2 days tournament and 2 days they come to the golf course for practice. So that 2 days, because of the school homework on, they barely play 9 holes any day. And for those 9 holes, they are claiming that they are giving big discount, big program for the kids. That is completely bullshit. This is not acceptable. And that's why I'm asking all the parents and everyone to help and try to convince the board member that Simi Valley Kids is your kid as well as my kid and everybody kids. Let's help them, let's support them, let's give them a break. Don't mint money on the kids. This is unethical to mint money on the kids and to do the capital investment and spending money on useless hiring the architect, spending 15% on 150,000 to hire an architect just to do the design, doing another $300 million on a renovation and make money on the kids. This is completely unheard of. So I will request board to reconsider this. Staff, I spoke to everyone. They hate me with passion now. Whenever I go, nobody wants to talk to me. And they said no, they will not do anything for the kids. They will keep as it is. Status quo is not going to work anymore. So please consider this. I am constantly in email communication with Mr. Brian. He's trying to help to do something for the kids. But I think the staff and the golf course management, they are not buzzing from their status quo. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay,
Yeah, I'd like to talk, yeah. So it's just, my daughter also golfs, so she's been going there for 8 years, and that's just always been the general, they're talking the specifics of what they will and what they won't do.
Can I ask a question, please?
That?
you can ask after this gentleman's finished. You can have your 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm allowed to or am I not allowed
You
to?
are allowed.
There's someone else giving public comment.
I'm just
at the moment.
curious, why is the golf
Please.
course the only one that is,
Okay,
Ms.
ma'am, you need to
Blackburn,
wait your turn.
someone else is giving
Sir,
public comment. If
continue.
you wait till he's done.
I'm sorry, ma'am, you
can
completely broke up.
All right.
Someone else is giving public comment. We'll let you know when he's done, and
Can
then
you try
can give
again?
public comment.
Yes. Okay. Apologies, sir. Please continue with what you were saying.
I was just
Okay, yeah.
simply asking, why is the golf course the only place that
Ms.
has?
Blackburn, you need to wait your turn.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, I thought it was my turn.
It's not your turn.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, go ahead, continue.
Yeah. So the other parents were talking the details of what they do and don't do, but just the spirit is they're just not interested. The high school is just inconvenience for them, and it always has been. And then when they were very little and they were practicing, they treat it the same way. It's just an inconvenience. It's not a money maker. So they just kind of always not treated the kids very well either. And then, you know, I've just heard them say some really snotty things to people. Just basically, they just say, if you don't like it, then get out. That's just basically their comment of either we can get full paying people in here, we don't need your kids here. So I've experienced it for 8 years and been frustrated with it, but really there's not much avenue to take. So unless you want to fire the manager or, you know, completely change it, I don't know what you do, but that's been how it's been since I've gone there for 8 years. So all the kids can tell you about it, every kid that goes to high school. So anyway, that's enough out of me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Blackburn, now it's your turn. Go ahead. Christine Blackburn?
Yes, ma'am, I am sorry, I did not hear the other gentleman speaking at all. That's why I jumped in. So I'm sorry, I didn't hear at all what he had said.
Okay.
I simply want to ask, why is the golf course the only place that has a fee?
Are we allowed to answer that? Or?
I can answer that if
Okay.
the board would like.
Yeah.
How about after all of them speak?
We can answer that after everyone has had something to say. So we'll keep that question in mind, and when Dan speaks, he'll answer that question. Anyone else?
Yeah, hi. I also want to add. So my daughter also go to Simi Valley High School, and she play on this course.
Okay.
I'm also having the same experience as other parents. What other parents just said. So it's not kids friendly. And I lived in San Diego prior to Simi Valley, and I have seen like at least 10-15 courses there, very friendly. They treat kids very well. Sometimes even they give them peak hours that go, tea times, and very, very friendly there. And other time, other gentleman was talking about the movie they shoot like in Simi Valley. Think about that, when our kids, some of them gonna go to all these premium colleges, alumni, and then, or some gonna convert like professionally and play all these, the college golf and all that. Of course, they're gonna, bring the name of this course and city, and it's gonna be really helpful. If you go to San Diego, there are a lot of places, La Jolla, Encinitas, people know about the courses there. So that's why I'm saying that somehow I felt after coming from San Diego, totally different environment here. So I highly recommend that management needs to take action. Maybe not everyone is like, but there are few folks. We need to identify that where exactly is the gap, and we need to fix this problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Anyone else that has not already spoken? Okay, Dan, you want to speak?
Sure. Relative to the times, the fees, generally any field that has a reserved time tag to it has a fee associated with it, whether it be softball or basketball or soccer or golf. If it's a reserved time and you have a specific time to play, all of the sports leagues that are using the fields pay a field fee, so the kids are paying the field fee through the sports league. It is true that other times we have walk-up activities, say on basketball courts, and the fields are open, but if you want to reserve time to use those, there's a fee associated with all of those uses. In terms of the youth fees, and Brian can correct me, again, we can't really discuss this too much, but I can respond factually. During the week between Monday and Thursday after 12 o'clock, the Southern California Golf Association has a program that we honor, and you can play for $5 afternoon, Monday through Thursday. And then we get reimbursed from the SCGA. On the other times afternoon, we offer a 50% discount to the youth. So they can golf, if you're golfing outside of Monday through Thursday, the youth currently get a 50% discount. In addition to that, the golf teams, like one of the speakers had said, they have about a 3 or 4 month season. All of the golf teams for their tournaments and their practices get to use the golf at no charge. So.
Okay.
Dan, there's a big group, and I understand because it's not on the agenda, we can't discuss it at length tonight. I'm wondering if you think it'd be good advice to have the golf committee talk to them or have a meeting specifically on this, or we should put it on the agenda at a future time to talk about it so we can talk in more detail?
Up to the board on that, on what you guys would like to do.
It might be a good idea. It seems to be an issue that people are concerned about, so I just,
Is Ed and Elaine on the golf committee?
I don't remember.
If I could, again, without getting into conversation, I did want to give Brian Reed the opportunity to provide comment to the speakers just factually.
I think at this point, we're probably going beyond the scope of the response. You're allowed under the Brown Act to briefly respond to comments, but I agree with Brian that we should probably, if you're going to have more conversation about it, put it on a future agenda.
Okay. So then the question is, does the board want to refer it to the golf committee, or would you like to have that conversation come back for the full board?
I think the golf committee is probably a good place to start. And then they can bring it back to the whole board. That makes sense?
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, for the people, you already have their contact information. I assume some of them know each other. They could share that information when you send a notice when that might be.
Yes. For those online, Mr. Williams, for the folks that spoke that don't have a speaker card, what's the best way to?
You can email Brian the contact information.
Okay. For the folks online that would like to get your name into us so we can make sure that we invite you to those meetings, if you can email Brian Reed at the golf course or coordinate that way would be the best. Then Brian can keep the list and we can reach out and make sure you're aware of what the meetings that are occurring with the board.
Yeah, that's fine. Works for me. Okay. All right, any more public statements? Okay. Item 5, approval of minutes. Rancho Senior Recreation and Park District Board of Directors meeting June 1st, 2022. Do I hear a move?
Excuse me. I'd like to add to those minutes, under my comments, item 11, reports by board members. I did mention that I also attended CARPD, and I wanted to have referenced in there the Jim Meredith Award that CARPD gives out. And Jim was a long-term board member of ours, and I just wanted him to be recognized in the minute. Thank you.
Okay. Any other revisions? Would someone like to make a motion to approve as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Second, as amended.
Okay, roll call, please.
Director Avila,
Aye.
Director Jenner,
Yes.
Director Freeman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray,
Aye.
Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
That motion carries with a unanimous vote.
Okay. Item B, Rancho Scenic Recreation and Park District Board of Directors Special Meeting, June 9th, 2022.
Move approval?
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Director Avila,
Aye.
Director Jenner,
Yes.
Director Freeman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray,
Aye.
Chair O'Brien,
Yes.
and that motion carries with a unanimous vote.
Okay, item 6, consent agenda. Any questions, comments?
Move approval?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Director Avila,
Aye.
Director Jenner,
Yes.
Director Freeman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray,
Aye.
Chair O'Brien,
Yes.
that motion carries with a unanimous vote.
Okay, item 7, presentations, scheduled items, and public hearings. A, approval of Mountain Recreation and Conservation Authority preliminary budget for fiscal year 2022-23.
Thank you, Chair. Teresa Pennington, the District's Director of Administration, will introduce the item with help from MRCA staff.
Honorable Chair, members of the board, the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority is governed by a joint powers agreement which requires each partner agency to review and approve the annual budget for MRCA. The partner agencies include Rancho Scenic Recreation and Park District, Conejo Recreation and Park District, and the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. This evening, Melissa Smith from Conejo Recreation and Park District and Bassam Mossad from MRCA have joined us via Zoom. Welcome to you both. At this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Mr. Mossad, who will present the MRCA 2022-23 preliminary budget for your consideration.
Hey.
Good evening, Madam Chair. This is Bassam, and I have my camera unfortunately stopped working for some reason, so I hope you can at least hear me. So it's this time of the year again. I'm happy to present before you today our MRCA preliminary budget for fiscal year 22-23. I just have a few quick notes on the proposal. It's a proposal based on the estimated actual of the current fiscal year's numbers with some limited changes. The purpose of this preliminary version of the budget is to give us spending authority come July 1st and allow us the time needed to finish our final budget proposal, which would typically be based on deep analysis and much more detailed calculations. As far as the changes on the expenses side, as you can see in the footnotes, we have increased the two categories of salaries and benefits. This is because we know our cost in those two categories will continue to grow because we continue to fill our vacancies. We may even need to add a few positions. All of this is still being worked out and we'll reflect on the final proposal when we come back. We also recently had some minimum wage increases mandated by the city, coupled with some other long-awaited step increases for some staff. And we've added also 2 additional holidays to make our benefit package more appealing to folks. All of this, all of those measures were really important and helpful for us and for our retention and recruitment purposes. And as always, we anticipate some payroll components to increase in cost. That obviously something like workers' comp and medical insurance and retirement contributions, usually those increase year over year. So all in all, to factor for all of that, we factored in a 12% increase. This is just an estimate. A more accurate projection of our benefits and salaries are being developed, and again will be reflected in the final proposal when we come back, hopefully soon. The other thing that we had to increase and was kind of obvious for us is insurance costs. We recently had a huge jump in both our auto insurance and our general liability insurance premiums. So we've increased those categories or this whole category accordingly. We understand from our broker that the insurance market still continues to be tough, and obviously MRCA nature of business is not a desired one since we have a lot of emergency vehicle and such. So we expect to continue to have, challenges when it comes to insurance costs year after year. On the revenue side, we've increased our grant revenues from the SMMC, the Conservancy, as we anticipate some new funding opportunities to be available to us with the passing of the new state budget. This is again just an estimate. A more accurate projection is being developed and will be reflected in the final proposal. We also anticipate to use at least some of the available unreserved fund balance that we expect to have by year end. And if we do so, it will be to offset large one-time costs, primarily from our legal defense expenses, which have been going up year after year, especially this current year. As we did last year, we're accounting for some salary savings that typically result from vacancies occurring during the normal vacancies that happen during the fiscal year and any potential delays in the hiring process. We also plan to spend about $500,000 out of the MRCA Capital Asset Improvement Reserve next year, which would be similar to the amount we spent or we expect to spend by end of this fiscal year. So that concludes all of my notes that I have for you, and Melissa and I are here and happy to take any question that you may have.
Okay, any questions?
Yes. First, let me say this board appreciates your increase in cost of operation. I think everybody feels it, so we understand. I do have one question, and I was wondering what the interest expense was of $105,000. Do you have a loan out?
It's a line of credit. We have a line, 3 different line of credits, a combined total of about $8 million. Helps us a lot in our cash flow management. And this is the interest that we have to pay for that.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions?
Did I hear you say there's an increase in legal defense?
Yeah, our legal cost in general has been going up recently. We have certain cases that we are defending or pursuing, and that is the main reason why.
Is that like personal injury, or what would you describe?
I don't think so. I don't think so. It's more. I don't know, Melissa. You want to talk about this a little bit more?
Yeah, they're typically not personal injury or anything like that. They're more. It's difficult because they're usually in closed session for the MRCA, so I don't want to give too much. But they're typically cases that are brought against the MRCA for projects that they're implementing, and so it's usually the defense of that.
And my other question is, where was open space preservation or purchases reflected in this? Buying land. I heard a little bit about that in the state budget, but if I'm looking at this spreadsheet that you supplied to us, is that on there?
Like acquisition cost, land acquisition cost?
Yeah.
So that would be, I don't know which sheet you're looking under, but if you're looking under the expenses, that would be land and improvement. If you're looking under revenues, the funding sources for that typically would be under the grants, SMMC, and grants other intergovernmental, either or both.
That's all my questions.
Okay, anyone else have questions? Any of the board members? Yes, Josh? Yes.
Just out of curiosity, I saw that for revenues, event fees was almost $500,000 above expectation, it appears, or the estimate is about that. I was curious if you could tie that to, is that any one particular event, or is that just the frequency of events as things have opened up, people are more eager to host events? I was curious if you could expand a little bit on what you would credit that to. That's a massive change.
Of course. So I guess the best way to describe this is that we are getting closer to our pre-pandemic levels. So what you see in year 2021 and 21-22 is a reflection of the pandemic. Those are way lower than our normal average. I think we're slowly, gradually, with the restrictions being relaxed by the different authorities, we are seeing, the activities of the special events are coming back. So that is a reflection of that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have another question. I'm looking at land and improvements on the budget, and it has it at $8,500,000 for this year. But I anticipate that number is going to be higher. There was a request in the state budget that State Assembly Jackie Irwin put in there. Did you say this was a rough estimate until the budget's passed?
Exactly. This is actually, we're following what we anticipate to end this fiscal year. We're following actual because we are still working, developing this numbers and all the numbers actually for the final version of the budget. So probably the most prudent thing for us was to follow actuals, but that doesn't mean it's gonna hold. We're gonna obviously revise this number, and I expect it to go up.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, any questions from the public on this?
Sorry, I barely got back on. It took me forever.
I'm sorry, say. Any questions from the public? Okay. I'll entertain a motion if somebody would like to make it.
Approval of staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call?
Director Abela?
Aye.
Director Jenner?
I appreciate how much they do for open space purchases and fire protection, so yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray?
Aye.
And Chair O'Brien?
Yes.
That motion carries with unanimous vote.
Okay. Item 7B, presentation of part-time employee of the month for May 2022 to Jenny Zimmer.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Pennington will provide staff's report.
Thank you. The part-time employee of the month for May 2022 is Jenny Zimmer. Jenny is a preschool teacher in the recreation department. She's worked for the district for over 17 years, and this is her first Employee of the Month award. Jenny is a devoted and hardworking teacher at the Lemon Park Preschool Program, which comes with the important responsibility of caring for kids. She does an outstanding job of providing that care with a blend of patience and compassion to every class she teaches. The annual egg hunt, Thanksgiving recital play for parents and children, Mother's Day tea gathering, Halloween carnival with Houghton Preschool, and the end of year scrapbook project are just some of her notable responsibilities, which she conducts with a great deal of success. Jenny is a lively spirit with a positive attitude, which is an attribution to her classes and others she encounters. She connects with her students and families, so much so that she's trusted with her students' siblings for years down the road. Many parents even return to visit with Miss Jenny with what was once her preschooler and now a high schooler. The value in that is beyond words. Congratulations to Jenny on this well-deserved recognition. Jenny, do you want to come on up?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody want to say anything?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Jenny, I just gotta say how many lives you have touched. And after 17 years, and all of the people that remember you. And I'm sure you're getting generational, maybe, even.
Not quite yet.
Thank you.
Get out of it before it happens.
I mean, really, I think your services are remarkable.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just thank you guys for allowing me to do it for my 18th year. So thank you, I appreciate it.
It's great. Okay, anyone else?
The level of trust and responsibility a parent has when they drop off their child to somebody That shows an amazing level of respect, especially when you mention the kids after the siblings. That's awesome. Congratulations, well deserved.
Just, I was honored this year. Out of my 24 kids, 17 of them were returning siblings.
Wow.
And I think 15 of them were like their last year with like 3 or 4 siblings. So it's like, I just, again, I think you guys feel honored being able to continue that year after year.
That stability in the program lets people know it's a quality program they can trust, so that's awesome.
Okay, 8, continued business. A, introduction of amendment to ordinance number 3 and consideration of the development of a policy regarding the usage of drones in the Simi Valley and Oak Park areas of the district.
Thank you, Chair. I will provide the report. As the board is aware, over the course of several meetings in October, November, and December of 2021, the board went through a process of establishing an ordinance which further allowed for the use of drones in various district properties. At the time, the ordinance allowed for drones in open space areas and also designated to staff the authority to identify specific developed parks where drones may be able to be flown. None of those parks had been selected yet at the time that we took this up. In February and April, the board received additional public input after adopting the ordinance from several folks that were concerned with the new ordinance. And the board heard quite a bit of public testimony and comment, written comment and oral comment over those periods. At the April 20th meeting, after considering the input and also considering a recommendation of the Oak Park Park and Recreation Committee, the board directed that staff return to the board with a revision to the ordinance, further limiting the use of drones as was originally adopted in the ordinance. The board also directed staff to develop a process or a mechanism whereby drones could still be used potentially in more limited areas than was previously approved. So with that direction, we're here tonight. Staff has developed the proposed ordinance. The suggested revision to the ordinance is Rule 62. It does eliminate the more blanket approval of drones in the open space and in the parks. And instead, the ordinance suggests, and I'll just read it real quickly, that drones for recreational purposes may be offered in specifically designated areas of the district upon approval of a policy by the board of directors. So it takes out kind of the blanket approval, and then it's saying the ordinance would then direct that a policy would establish those areas where drones may be allowed to be used. Rule 33 at the time we also changed. The board wanted to clarify that drones were to be allowed in association with commercial or filming or special events or professional photography, and in those cases the rule does require that in order to use it for filming or commercial or educational purpose, it does require an approved permit, either for the filming activity, a facility use permit, or a special event permit under Rule 33. The new ordinance, as proposed to you tonight, the draft ordinance makes no changes to Rule 33. So with that, if the board is interested in introducing the ordinance or moving in that direction, we also would ask that we would take direction from the board this evening, and staff would develop a policy related to drones as directed by the new ordinance. As a part of that discussion, staff would like to get some input on the possible locations that would be considered as part of the policy for drone usage, if that was where the board wanted to go. The staff and I got together, and the suggestions here aren't limited. We just got together and kind of put together a list of where we thought it might be more feasible or more in tune with the area. So we suggested Big Sky Park, which is a developed park, so you can fly up there before they start softball activities, maybe during the day before 2. We suggested Chumash Park in the surrounding area, mostly not near in the middle of residential areas. Corriganville Park, Alamos Canyon, Chivo Canyon, Las Yajas, Tapo Canyon, and then any other area the board may be interested in. Suggested locations for Oak Park. If the board will recall, the recommendation from the Oak Park Committee was pretty limiting or asked for no use, recommended to you, no use in open space. However, the board could consider the Oak Park Community Center archery range area potentially as a spot, or potentially the Oak Canyon Community Park. That being said, the committee also recommended that before we select any of those places, that we run it by the committee prior to it coming back to the board. We'd also like to get input on the time of day, potentially, that you would allow for the use of drones at specific locations, whether or not the policy should include a requirement that recreational drone users also receive a permit from the district to operate a drone, and then any other items the board may be interested in including in the policy. So that's what's before you. The board can, I'm not going to go through the alternatives, but there's alternatives there. Staff is recommending alternative number 1. If introduced, the second reading and adoption of the ordinance would be scheduled for your July 20th board meeting, and the new ordinance would be effective 30 days after adoption, so sometime in mid-August. Also, if approved, staff would draft the policy based on direction this evening, review it with the Oak Park Committee, probably at their next meeting, and then bring the policy back to the board after review by the Oak Park Committee. That concludes staff's report. Staff's recommending that you introduce the ordinance for first reading, amending the rule number 62, and then also direct staff to develop a policy and bring that back to the board at a future meeting. That concludes staff's report.
Okay. All right, any questions from board members, comments?
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but on the alternate locations, I hadn't thought about Tapa Canyon, but there's parking off that, isn't there, to get, if somebody wanted to go up Tapa Canyon?
There's a bit of parking now. It's at improved parking, and I think as part of the new development up there, we're supposed to get a larger piece, a larger easement. But there is space for some up there that hike on that trailhead now.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Brian, anything?
When we go to public comment to help me formulate a good policy, the public can say whatever they would like, but I'd appreciate if it was specific feedback on the report. So as an example, if it said, not I like drones or I dislike drones, but specifically, what do you think of limiting hours, locations, or any part of that process? That recreational permit, Dan, I want to make sure that we're not making so many rules. It goes back to the old system, which is there wasn't a system, but people flew drones. What would you envision how hard that would be for just a young person who wants to go fly the drone?
Yeah,
and they're doing it in a place where we've approved it.
Yeah. I've done some research with this with other districts. Some folks require permits for use of drones recreational and some don't. So just generally it's kind of up to the board on if you want that control point. I would imagine the permit would be a very easy permit, and probably it'd be a no cost permit. So you'd come in, there'd probably, you'd have the policy with different regulations and rules. We'd probably have a handout of safe flying of drones, a little bit of education, and we'd issue that person a permit. I would imagine it would be over the counter and with no fee.
The question I have, every time they wanted to go out with their drone, would they have to get a new permit?
We could take that direction. I would suggest that they get one permit and get registered as a drone flyer with us once, and then they can fly it at these designated locations whenever. Not every time they fly now.
I'm inclined not to go with a permit just for recreational use, as long as they're using it in wherever we designate. I think it's logistically, it might be complicated to do that.
It could be. If we could have them do permits online, that would.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Oh, that's true.
That would be that'd be a lot simpler.
But paid a fee online if there was a fee.
Yeah.
After public comment, I've got more thoughts on permits, but the goal would be we would know who the person is. If there's a conflict, we can say, oh, is that person following the rules or not following the rules?
I have sort of a question. It's kind of related. I noticed. I thought of it when I read the thing about the archery range. People use the archery range for bows and arrows, right?
Correct.
Do they need permits for bows and arrows?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, they just show up, they go away. Okay.
No permit for bows
All right,
and
well,
arrows.
never mind then. I was going to say, let's make it similar, but if they don't need permits, then, yeah. Okay, Josh, any questions? Ed, any comments? Josh?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got comments for after public comment, but I have a question. Just out of curiosity, for the staff who were in the room, Corriganville has been a frequent area for filming. Did we have anybody who, just out of curiosity, from Corriganville who's a staffer who may have talked about that point more? That there's lots of filming going on and there's other activities?
Zach's going to answer, Mr. Miller's going to answer the question. Josh, Mr. Miller's going to answer the question for you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We only identified Corriganville as a open space area that would be kind of conducive to flying. There are a lot of people out in Corriganville. There are a lot of permits. There are a lot of filming permits as well. So it is definitely an option for the board to consider. I don't know if it's the best option at this time, but I would want to put it on your plate for discussion. That would have to be a scheduling kind of issue, what time, what place, and where in the park specifically. So we would like some direction in that, in those areas if you choose to pursue that park.
And Mr. Gray, I would suggest that even though it's on the list, if we come up with other areas, that's not one that would be high on staff's list to allow for drones. But
Are you thinking, where, I mean, I'm quite familiar with Corrigan. It would have to be in the parking area. I mean, not at the back portion, not internal.
Most likely, yes. That would be probably the preferred #1 location, would be in an open area where they could land and take off and land safely. Experienced drone flyers will say that they can land and fly them anywhere, but we would probably recommend a bigger open area where it's less prone to crashing or any of those types of issues.
Exactly. If someone just parks on the street and flies a drone over our park, we have no authority over that. Is that correct?
Based on our previous conversations, I do believe that that's correct, that we would only be able to enforce the takeoff or landing zone of where the drone's kind of being released from. I don't believe we own the airspace over the parks, if I remember our previous conversation.
Turns out the FAA owns that airspace.
Correct, I believe that is the answer, yes.
So whether we allow it or not allow it in Corriganville, someone could park right out the street and fly over the entire park.
You could, yeah, a person could get around the ordinances pretty easily.
So I'll wait till later for that.
Okay. All right. Are you done, Josh? Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I have comments for later, but that concludes any questions.
Chair, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, what?
I was just, when you get to public comment, we can do the people in the room first, and then like we have been doing, I'll read down the folks that are on Zoom.
That's a good idea.
For Josh and Ed, there's a medium-sized crowd tonight. I'd estimate about 10 people or so.
Yeah. Okay. Ed, do you have anything? Guess not.
No questions. I may have comments after the public comment.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, I'm going to open to public comment. I have 2 green cards. If you want to speak, fill out a green card so we can contact you later. First one is Dean Wageman. Hope I pronounced that. Come up to the podium and
How do you do? Thank you for having this meeting. So I'm the Vice President of our Homeowners Association in Bridle Path. We have a mountain park that encompasses 1,700 acres of open space. The reason I'm speaking tonight is I would like the proposal to include specific language that addresses horses and equestrians. The concern here is it opens us up to personal injury, of course. What happens with the drones flying over is horses are affected by this. There are several areas that they could fly, but if the language in the proposal would address specific areas where horses may be present, and equestrians, that would include the areas in backyards, similar to what we described earlier about parking adjacent to the location and flying overhead. We have issues in our neighborhood now of local residents that like to fly drones around, and it's already an issue within our community. So it's very important to equestrians in the room that we address this issue just to make sure that we're covered.
Was there specific language you were asking for?
I think if it identifies that the the drone flying location would be in consideration for horses and or equestrians that normally ride in that area or present in that area.
And then part of that is, you said people are already flying in your neighborhood. We're trying to find a location where you can tell them, hey, go fly over there.
I mean, Lincoln Park down the street would be acceptable. We don't ride in that area, so that would be fine. We talked about golf courses earlier, right? I don't want to be flippant about this, but I wouldn't have an issue with them flying over a golf course, but I can imagine some of these people that are discussing this tonight have an issue trying to play golf when there's this drone flying over that sounds like a huge bumblebee behind your back.
Sure, could I ask for a point of clarification, just so I understand? So the proposal tonight at this point isn't proposing anywhere in the bridle path for drones. So if drones were not allowed in the bridle path, would you still want something? Because then the drones aren't allowed at all.
Well, it's open space. I mean, there's areas across First
Well,
Street
the
that we
proposal
ride
here
as well.
tonight, though, is not going to allow it in that open space,
Yeah.
probably.
Right.
So what I'm saying, if there was a ban on drones in that open space area by the bridle path, are you asking, if that were the case, are you asking for additional language relative to that? Because they wouldn't be allowed there anyways.
It would be more of the concern in any area where.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. So you're talking about any area, not just the bridle path?
The concern is of course, the neighbors in our community, but yeah, it would be any other area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Liz Fold.
You've answered quite a few questions that I had already about the, what exactly what the procedure was. And so now I understand, that you're just voting on changing the ordinance so that you're able to have a policy rather than have a rule. Okay, so that was my question as far as that goes. And as far as I'm concerned, the permit idea is a good idea. So that they have a permit and we know who was using and they could use them at any of the designated places. But I would like to know if we can be included in the discussion of what, as is the Oak Park Committee, in what places you decide, because we may come up with some concerns once you get to the policy decision. Some of the places we may have some good input so that we don't have to keep going over and over and over again. Some things that you hadn't thought of, and we're hoping that you'll let us know what we could, have some input on, other than just deciding. I'm not sure exactly how long it takes for you guys to go through and decide and vote, and where we can come in and say something.
We could go slow on that process, but tonight we discussed Big Sky, Shumash, Alamos Canyon, and Los Yajos. And then in Oak Park, we didn't discuss, but an idea mentioned was at just one place, the archery range, if the Oak Park Committee liked that idea. But we're asking for the Oak Park Committee for feedback on the archery range. Tonight you could give feedback on those other 4 locations if you choose.
Well, I think there's some other people that are going to give some feedback, but I do know that they ride, as far as horses go, that is one, consideration, but there's also the consideration of brush and fires and the animals and all kinds of other things besides the equestrian community, which has been very vocal, and I know that. And I just want you to know that this evening there was a conflict between the other HOA that has been very active in this conversation, and they couldn't be here today. Otherwise, this room would have 10 more people. And honestly, I haven't seen any or heard from any pro-drone people, even though Josh seems to think that there is quite a contingent of people who are really interested in this. And frankly, I haven't heard anything about it. And that's kind of an interesting point. But that's all, if we can be involved or be informed of these other places that you're considering, just to get our input, we'd really appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room who has not spoken that wants to speak on this? I see.
Can I speak? I did fill out a card, but.
Okay, well, come on up and speak, and you can fill out the card later.
Dan, the speakers tonight could give us feedback on those locations, correct?
Yeah, tonight is the point where we would get the input on suggested locations, so. But I just want to note, it'll come back to the board for a board approval and a policy also.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is George. I've been up here before, speaking about, the drones in the equestrian area and stuff like that, and against it. Tonight I want to maybe make some suggestions or just get some ideas, or come up with some ideas and stuff. You were suggesting drones being flown in designated areas. The problem is you can't put a fence around it. So you're just designating a place for them to take off and land. But with those drones having cameras, they can fly quite a distance and go into areas that can cause problems. So one suggestion would be, there are drones that don't have cameras on them. If you made it to where the drones didn't have cameras, then they would only be able to fly them within line of sight. So that would kind of create a fence around that area. Now, they do make drones, and you can get a lot of pleasure and recreation out of flying a drone with that camera. I have one. It fits in the palm of my hand, and I can fly it inside the house. And I have a lot of fun with it. I used to, actually, because Julie had gotten hurt because of a drone, and you heard about that situation with the horse and stuff. I can't fly that drone anymore because she suffers from PTSD. She hears drones and stuff like that, and she starts, to hyperventilate and stuff like that. So it's boxed up and it sits now. But within the city, if maybe limit to where you can't fly a device that has a camera unless it's for business, or you'd have to get a permit in order to have a camera surveillance type device mounted on the drone. Then you kind of limit the distance, and then that way it still allows the filming and stuff. Like if somebody wants to use it for photography, or for wildlife or whatever, or, taking pictures of the sunset or something like that, they can get a permit. But like for kids and stuff like that, they can just fly them within and get just as much pleasure. You don't have to have a camera, and there's no reason to have a camera on it and fly. Before drones, there was remote control helicopters, and I have 2 of them. And there was never ever a problem with those because there was never cameras on them. And you never heard complaints about them. You could fly them in your backyard
Speaker's time
and
is
stuff
up.
like that. So anyway.
Sorry, time's up.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else who would like to speak who has not spoken on this issue?
I'll go to those folks that are on Zoom. Nobody
All right,
else in the room.
let's do the Zoom people.
Dave Matthews.
Good evening. I'm Dave Matthews. I'm a volunteer open space patroller for the Park District. Speaking tonight regarding Alamos Canyon open space, which is 325 acres, was purchased by the district for $2.8 million. Alamos Canyon was acquired by the Park District principally because of its value as a wildlife movement corridor. It also provides passive recreational opportunities. 58 acres is a mitigation area due to environmentally sensitive nature. This area is controlled by a conservation easement deed accepted by this board on December 1, 2016. Section 3 of that easement states in part, prohibited uses. Any activity on or use of the easement area that is inconsistent with the purpose of this conservation easement is prohibited. Subsection F of Section 3 states in part, active recreational uses and activities, including but not limited to use of drones while the operator is located on the easement area. Because of this existing easement that's been accepted by the board along with the purchase of the property, I suggest that Alamos Canyon open space be removed from the list of areas authorized for drone use. Thank you for considering my concerns.
Thank you, Dave. Harry Medved.
You know, why don't I let Douglas Bamforth speak first, if that's okay, Dan, and then I'll follow Doug.
Kind of go the order that we're calling here, Harry.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, first of all, I want to thank the board and the staff for all the time on reconsidering and trying to revise the ordinance and working with folks to make it work for everyone. I do feel, as Liz Fulp said earlier, that it is strange to me, Josh, I do know that you said you have heard from a lot of people, but we haven't heard from them in these meetings. And I know when the board and staff put so much time into an effort as a public agency for the public, it's usually something like pickleball, or recently BMX, or even tonight with golf, where people show up at meetings. People write letters in support of it. And so far, once again, I haven't seen any letters from people who live in Simi Valley or Oak Park about the unpermitted use of drones. So what I would recommend as we move forward as a board tonight is do consider the idea, which I think is an excellent idea that the staff put across, of asking people for permits. Ed, you were talking about how you don't want to punish the bad actors, punish the good actors out there because of a couple of bad apples who are misusing drones. Well, by having a permit, you would actually reward people for doing the good stuff. I love Dan's idea of giving them some instructions, letting them know how to use a drone and all that stuff. And at least we know who these people are who are using the drones. The only comments I hear, and I see on Nextdoor just recently, are about people using drones at 3 in the morning and disturbing the peace. So I also agree that Alamos Canyon is a bad idea, and the recent Rancho Simi Trail Guide is described as a bucolic canyon with few hints of man-modified landscape. So I really don't know why you'd want to spoil it with the unpermitted use of drones there. I would also not recommend Corriganville because of all the filming that goes on. According to Nikki, it wouldn't disturb filming. Filming has the ability to just shut down the drones, but I still think if people start thinking it's full of drones, it's going to make it a less attractive place to the filming community. So thanks again for considering all of our thoughts. I would recommend not looking at Oak Canyon as a place, but we can wait until the Oak Park Committee, the full committee, considers that and talks about where they think drones should be flown at Oak Park. But thanks again for considering just using permits moving forward for drones.
Harry, you didn't mention the archery range. Any thoughts on that?
Well, once again, I really think, don't you want, Dan, the whole committee to consider this first? I wouldn't have a problem personally with the archery range if it's permitted. I think drones will get smaller, they'll be less noisy, they'll be less dangerous in the future. So definitely something worth looking at. I think the archery range is a possibility.
Okay, thank you. All right, Douglas, you're up.
Yes, good evening. Hello?
I haven't seen you since yesterday. It's nice to see you out here.
You're on.
Yeah, I'd like to tell you about one experience that I had. I do a lot of photography and stuff, and I was a little bit, a few weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago, I was walking through Corriganville, looking for pictures to take, and I found something, and I was all settled in, and all of a sudden this drone comes zipping by about 20 feet over my head. Really gave me a start. I think that I think the drones are okay. However, I think that one of the things that should be considered, especially on places like Corriganville, where there's a lot of little kids on their bicycles and stuff, is a minimum height that they're allowed. This way it won't suddenly come up on someone. That's my feelings on that. But I know it's a very difficult thing trying to everyone so that everybody is okay with it. And I applaud you for that, and thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Doug. I've got a Pete Abbey. Pete, did you want to make public comment on this item?
No, but thanks for asking. I just wanted to hear what you guys were considering. I mean, obviously, the FAA has laid down a lot of requirements as far as kind of what those standards are, and I would just recommend that the board here consider that. Obviously, the limitations of what you can and can't do with regards to policy obviously have to correspond with the FAA's requirements. I do fly a drone, and you know, I hear a lot of emotional statements made from people, but I mean, I would ask that if you're truly honest with yourself and you ask yourself, how often? Now, I know Douglas just mentioned that he had heard, you know, a drone fly overhead, and yeah, that's irresponsible drone piloting, but I would ask how many people have really, you know, heard a drone overhead one time in their life, let alone scared them and spooked them. I mean, I think a lot of people's feelings are a bit hyperbolic, but again, I can't speak to how they feel about it, other than to say that I would just recommend that you guys just stay abreast of the FAA requirements and make sure that you know, you're not making policies outside your jurisdiction.
Pete, where do you fly your drone?
I usually fly it, I think at different places. So I do fly out in bridle path, but I don't fly any. I mean, I have a horse myself, so I do not fly anywhere near a horse, right? So I mean, there are things that you can do to be prudent. But there are some open spaces that I fly. Of course, you guys know, right? The requirement is that you can control the flight of drones from taking off and landing from your property, but you certainly can't do it if the person's in just say, you know, out on the street in their car and they want to fly over an area. They certainly can do that. I think that one of the comments that was made by the board member is very salient, which is, no, drones are going to get quieter. They're going to get safer. They're going to improve as far as I guess the nuisance that they're claimed to have caused. But I mean, I'm just trying to be pragmatic here. You know, I mean, a lot of people get very excited about the subject of drones, but it's something that, I mean, remote control planes have been doing forever, and helicopters and that kind of a thing. And even the camera thing, I mean, you can't really mandate that somebody can't buy a camera and fly it. I mean, that's outside the jurisdiction. I would just apply prudence, common sense, yes.
Pete, yeah, actually, you hit on one of them. Can you just give me a couple examples of what you're talking about in terms of, as you understand it, in light of the FAA rules, what we can and cannot do?
Yeah. So, I mean, my understanding is this, right? I mean, first of all, to become a drone pilot, you have to, and I'm talking about for just hobby purposes. If you're commercial, there's a separate requirement that's much more stringent, but you do have to take this little online safety course. And, you know, you can't really mandate that people can't fly over areas unless there's populated areas, right? I mean, where people are, and flying obviously in a dangerous way. How you cross a freeway, right, has to be kind of perpendicular to the freeway. You can't fly along the freeway. You can't fly over gatherings. You know, you wouldn't want to fly over your local, street fair or something like that, right? So there are things that I think are on the books already for prudence. But for the most part, I mean, people are flying at usually 300-400 feet, and you can't hear it at 300 and 400 feet. But they're flying at 300-400 feet, and they're not buzzing people. And certainly, if somebody, like we said, bad actors, right, working, piloting a drone right next to a horse. I mean, horses do spook. I do know that, and you know, there's a certain courtesy in the neighborhood if you live here that you always appeal to. You know, you don't make sudden movements. You don't do loud things. You don't throw big white bags in the air. That keeps the horses, from spooking, and the same should apply for drones. So I do believe that it's very important that these people be good operators. I have no problem with the permit. I think that's totally fine. I don't know exactly what it accomplishes, but I would of course apply for one. But the FAA leaves, they don't have a whole lot of information on the books right now, to be totally honest. There are more laws coming, though, at the end of 2023, though. So then things may become a little more stringent, but of course, they're going to have to also consider some of the commercial uses for drones that are going to be happening, right? So you penalize the people who do it as a hobby, but you allow, not at this time, but Amazon at some point is already testing in a particular community for drone deliveries. So that is coming in the future.
The speaker's time is expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Danny Sue, did you want to make comment on this item? Hearing none, I don't see anybody else. Is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to make public comment?
Okay. All right, I'm going to close the public comment and bring it back to the board for our comments. Who would like to start? Okay, Josh.
Yeah, so, it's already been repeated, but as, Ed has said, these proposals are for rule followers. And this isn't the only ordinance we have that can simply be ignored by bad actors. Having an established location, which this policy is working to do, creates a community and creates a specific area where we do have the possibility of, just like the skate park and other community groups, they can self-police, and we can also, the rangers have a greater capacity to enforce certain rules. We, as Pete pointed out in his comments, the FAA has jurisdiction for a lot of this. Included in, I know there was a comment about cameras and all that, and but I will note that the FAA already has a policy that your drone needs to stay within line of sight of the pilot, so that there's already a fence. There's already, and applied, the people who are the experts on this have done this. So that is one aspect I wanted to address. I don't know, I think the whole purpose of having a designated area is that it's designated, and that's the area where you get to go do it. We're not making, as far as I'm aware, equestrians don't have to get a permit to go use equestrian space. It's equestrian space. I think this drone area should be similar. There might be time constraints, there might be other avenues where I have to consider other communities of interest for that space. And I think if the board is adamant on doing a permit, which I would disagree with, I think the most logical way to do that is not to have a permit system, but to utilize the FAA permit, which is already there, already a system, already requires classes, and they're the experts. And what we can do is, if people want to do that, sorry, I wrote it down, the actual name for it. It's the FAA authentication token number, which is the number that ties to the certificate that shows they took the class. I think that would be the only thing that's required on the certificate. It says the person's name who took the class, and there's an authentication number there. I think that, still pushes it, but it at least has, the park district would then have, names and a record of folks who were interested, but I also don't think, I don't know that it's necessary if this is a specific area designated for this event. And then other than that, I'll also note, I think I was concerned about, if our policy would cover protection for events and other permitted activities, that we would want, some security for folks who are doing events or have paid for permits. But I also think that's covered by FAA, where you're not allowed to fly, as Pete mentioned, over events, overcrowded, populated areas. I think that's built in by the experts already. And it's just up to us to, find a location that works for as many communities as possible. That's my comments.
Okay, thank you. Ed?
Sure. Anything I would say would be repeat from the last couple times we've discussed this. Yeah, the permitting thing is, it's virtually meaningless. It's an extra layer of of paperwork that accomplishes nothing. It's almost silly with there being FAA requirements. So I too would be against the permitting. And I just think we have to look at what we're really trying to do here, really trying to accomplish here. Much of what we're talking about here is already regulated. So I think, we've heard what the public wants, we should take that into account, but we shouldn't turn this into something that borderline isn't even in our jurisdiction. So those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Elaine?
I would like to ask Director Avila a question because he lives in this neighborhood. I wondered how you feel about Chumash Park. It seems like a good location to me. It's isolated. There is residential on the west side, but on the east and north, and it's pretty open all the way around, and there's parking, and it seems like a good location. That's your neighborhood, and I wondered how you felt about
It doesn't bother me at all. And in terms of the park district regulating it in any way, it doesn't matter because people are doing it. They're going to do it whether we're putting something in an ordinance or whether we're not putting something in an ordinance. It personally doesn't bother me. I don't hear any complaints from neighbors. It's not frequent. It's occasional, but there are drones in that area. I don't have a problem.
Okay, because what we're talking about is designating a spot, and I'm trying to find the best spot. And it seems like that has good access and a lot of open space.
In answer to that, I think that the question, that's not really, for me, the right question. I think we can have multiple spots designated. I don't think it has to be one spot. I don't know why we would have to limit it to one spot. To me, there appear to be multiple good spots. So I don't, to me, I'm looking at it completely differently than looking at it like it has to be just one spot. I've never looked at it like that.
So, well, I want a clarification here. We have in the Rule 62, I understand what it means, that it wouldn't be on equestrian areas, it would not be an open space. Do you think the way it's written is clear, or do we need to state in that ordinance that specifically open space or those areas with equestrian use? Do you think it's necessary to put that in the ordinance?
The ordinance or the policy?
The policy, excuse me.
We can do that if you want to make it very clear that it's not allowed in the equestrian areas. We can add that to the policy.
I think that probably
is a good idea. I think
be a good idea.
Yeah.
And so just to clarify, what Director Avila is saying is we could allow if the use of drones in any areas that weren't covered in this policy. Is that correct?
Say that again, Director Freeman, I'm sorry.
So what Director Avila was suggesting is that we would allow drone use in all of our parks that were not covered by policy 62 and not designate a specific place, correct?
No, the policy would designate the areas that you want to allow drones. All other areas, they would not be allowed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we just have policy.
Right.
If we just
I was
have
saying
policy
you don't
62,
need to limit it to just one area.
we'd have to adjust policy 62, taking out the reference to specific areas. And we'd just be saying they would be allowed in any of our parks.
Yeah, so what the ordinance does here is it takes out the blanket approval.
Yeah.
And it basically says drones aren't allowed. But by policy, it's almost an exception. However, it's allowed at these spots. So the ordinance bans drones, but allows it by policy where you want to designate.
I'll just say I agree that I don't like the idea of permitting. I think it's cumbersome and I think it's bureaucratic, I guess I would say. But I would like to clarify that I think specific areas should be designated for drone use.
Chair, I might suggest that we work down the bullet points here. Is that okay with everybody? So the first bullet point is possible locations that would allow for drone usage. Staff has provided you a sample list. You can go with anything on that list that you would like. So I'd look for direction on the suggested areas in SEMI that you'd like me to put in the policy. We're not voting or approving this tonight. It'll come back as a policy, but I could build the areas you desire into the policy.
Could be more than one.
It could be any, it could be any of the, it could be all of them, it could be not some of them, it could be one,
I
whatever.
have a concern about Corrigan because of the oak trees and all.
Okay. So I'll ask the other board members, do you have the same concerns about Corriganville?
Yeah, I do.
Strike that from the list.
I do not have a concern about Corriganville. The only one that I have minimal concern about might be based on the comments that I've heard would be maybe the Alamos Canyon situation. But I don't have a problem with any of them. I certainly don't have a problem with Corriganville. Maybe borderline on the Alamos Canyon.
Okay.
I like the idea of Chumash, and I like the idea of Tapo,
Tap open space.
No, Las Yajas, because there's enough open space there, and I think if we had a policy that said drones are okay anywhere where there's no horses, we'd end up having to put too many rules on it, like minimum height and minimum times, cameras, no cameras, because there'd be too many other people around. If you have designated areas that are isolated enough and have enough open space, we probably wouldn't have to worry about that kind of thing. I do think that if we do designate areas, perhaps a warning sign to equestrians so they know not to bring the horses into those areas would be a really good idea. If you want to keep from spooking horses, they've got to do their part. They've got to keep the horses away from the drones too. I mean, drones away from horses, horses away from drones. If there's an FAA procedure for permitting, we don't have to worry about it, obviously. I didn't realize there was one. But that's good. I mean, as long as the drone operator has the permit and knows that they may need to produce it, when they're flying. They may need to be prepared to produce it. I think we're probably
And we would put that in the policy.
Yeah, make sure you have an FAA permit, and if we catch you doing something unpleasant, we might ask to see it or something like that would be good.
So I'm hearing, go ahead, Brian.
I'll get to locations, but I want to say one of the reasons we're doing this is so we can encourage safer behavior, and that Josh, as you mentioned, it can build community. And Dave, I want to thank you for volunteering, especially Alamos Canyon, because it's pretty inaccessible as far as trails go, so I appreciate you out there. Harry's right that drone users are not complaining, asking for a lot more places. And I'm not saying no drone users, obviously some are, but just not huge numbers. One of the reasons for that is they currently can fly the drones basically everywhere anyways. So I wasn't so sure about Chumash Park, for example. But what I realized is if we don't allow it, you just park on the street right there and fly over the entire park. If you do allow it, you're asking them not to fly by neighbors' houses and park right on the street. You're asking them to walk into the park. So if we don't allow it, the exact same amount of drones are at that park, but they're closer to neighbors' houses. That's why I asked for the feedback, like not just drones or not drones, but on that policy. So I'm fine with Chumash Park. Not that we're voting on that tonight, but I'm fine with considering that. I'm open to removing Alamos Canyon for the specific reasons listed. Also, as far as Josh mentions for building community, it's a pretty far walk to even get to Alamos Canyon, not at Oak Park County Park to even get to that place. I walk slow, but it takes me 25 minutes just to walk into that park. So I can't imagine that building community, and there's the other conflicts. I do want to add to the list a possible location, not the Arroyo, because the Arroyo backs up to a lot of people's houses, but there's a segment, and the segment is at the very end of Seam Valley where there are no houses and there's some commercial properties, and you're flying right over the Arroyo. So it limits some conflict there.
Where's that segment?
East or west?
The west end. So the west end, I'll work with you later on.
Right here, right there.
Yeah, right by that property.
Yeah,
so there's a location there that's far away from people's houses, that's not very well utilized, there's not a lot of other users, there's not a lot of people down there. And then I like, Kate, what you said about a place where it's open space away from people. But I don't think Los Yajas qualifies for that. There seems to be a lot of hikers and bikers
Okay, yeah.
So if that was the only choice, that'd be different, but if we're trying to find a few locations and build community, I would like Big Sky, but Dan, what did you say about hours?
The softball, so this is Big Sky, not open space, but the actual park.
Right.
And we have sports leagues up there, mostly in the afternoon, so we want to set a time that didn't conflict with the sports league activities.
They can use it in the morning.
I was suggesting, up until 2, because then the kids start going after school to use the sports fields.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
open
I'd
to
be
Big
fine
Sky
with
with limited hours.
And then we'd probably limit it on weekends, because they have games up there on weekends. So it'd be Big Sky with some limited times around the sports league activity.
I like the idea of Big Sky.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
What did you say about La Shawness, Brent? You liked it or you didn't?
I did not like that location as long as there's other better.
Okay.
There's other open space places that are not as well used.
Yeah.
That was my initial reason for Alamos Canyon is usually when I go there, there's 2 or 3 people in the entire place. So as far as like a drone bothering you, but it's not, even if we allowed Alamos Canyon, there's not gonna be too many people flying a drone there. And there's the other considerations as the speaker mentioned. So I like Shumash as a consideration. Big Sky with limited hours, the Arroyo segment. I like those 3 ideas, and I think that gives us a list of possible places with minimal conflict. And then I do like the permit idea, but I understand what you're saying about bureaucracy. And being that they already have to get a FAA permit anyways, I'm thinking a passive permit where it's, you go to our website, you fill out the form, and it sends it right back to you. Since it's already free, it's just an auto reply email basically. And the auto reply email states our policies and safety policies and guidelines. So if you want to fly a drone, you could go online. If it's Saturday morning and we're not open, all your friends are flying a drone, but you're visiting, you don't have a permit, you just fill it in really quick. You supply your FAA number, and then you're done. So it's a permit, but it also allows us just to, if somebody says, there's somebody flying a drone over there, and they're doing something wrong. Yeah, they're not following the rules. They don't have a permit, we don't know who they are.
That means we have to have rules with the permit.
Yeah, the permit would they get their name, the fact that they've taken that course, and then sends them right back our rules. So you fill it out on your phone, you get an email back that says, stay away from horses, stay away from here, these are the permitted areas.
Okay, yeah, I could live with that. Okay.
I think needed some consensus here, or I'll try to summarize what I think I heard. So we're gonna include the areas on the list, but we're going to exclude Alamos Canyon. We're going
And Dan, to clarify, we're not approving these, we're just saying we're gonna discuss them at the next
I
meeting.
need some direct, just to bring back and talk to folks about what we're looking at. So we're gonna exclude Alamos Canyon at this point. We're gonna add Tierra Hada Open Park potentially. And then Corriganville, it sounded like a tweener, I guess. So I'll put, I guess I'll put Corriganville in there, and we can make that. Yeah, do you guys want to do consensus on Corriganville now, or do you want me to bring the policy back with it in there?
So let me make this easy. I would not. I think all of these locations are fine. I would not take any of them out.
You might.
That's my approach.
Okay, we could include them all. Why don't we do it like order of preference, like maybe put Corriganville at the bottom or something.
Okay, so you want me to include everything?
I don't see Corriganville at the bottom. If I understood correctly is that this wouldn't in any way affect the filming there. My position is I would not exclude any of the recommended ones.
Dan, if there was filming happening, we could not allow it during filming, just like we don't allow someone to mountain bike right through a film.
Yes.
Okay.
So as far as interfering, there will be no permitted drones interfering with the official film production because it's just not allowed. Just like you can't walk up to Justin Bieber when he's filming at Corriganville. Lonely is on YouTube, the live version. It's a beautiful shot, but you can't walk up and just meet him. You can't interrupt it. Just because it's flying, you can't interrupt it either.
So the policy will include all of these locations. It will eliminate Alamos Canyon, and it will add Tierra Hada.
Josh?
Yeah.
Are you fine with removing Corriganville? Would you like to keep it?
To consider it.
I think if I've heard Corriganville, it won't interrupt filming, so I think we should include it then.
Okay, second, time of day. is usually dusk till dawn. However, if we want it different, we talked about Big Sky, we proposed some different hours that you can do it. So short of, outside of Big Sky, I would write the policy so it would be allowed from dusk till dawn.
You mean dawn till dusk?
Dawn till dusk.
Okay, just checking. I'm okay, that works for me.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that.
Before you go on that, can I ask you a quick question? I know Mom.
And now it's not the time, Harry.
Okay, no problem.
The Oak Park locations, I will take to the Oak Park Committee to consider and make a recommendation to you. And then the permit requirement. I've heard different perspectives on a permit, requiring a permit or not requiring a permit. I thought I heard the majority say no permit.
I'll make it one last argument for a permit before, or maybe other board members to solidify their opinion. I'm thinking the easiest, no cost, no bureaucracy, because just filling it out. And that helps to let members of our community know that we're educating drone users, but we're not making them jump for an extra hoop except for filling out an online form on their phone. So I'm envisioning you fill out the form in less than 5 minutes and you're good to fly. But at the same time, you're aware of the rules and we've educated you one more time.
And you got your FAA certificate.
I'm opposed to the permit.
I should probably insert myself into this discussion. In the memorandum that is included in your packet that was prepared by our office on page 6, the last sentence says that local regulations that impose additional safety or permit requirements are likely to be federally preempted. So I think that if you did include permits, there could be some issues.
Brian, what could I call a permit so it's not a permit, since we're not asking them, they're not getting permission, they're just informing us that they're doing it?
Well,
can we just call that?
We can make a social media post asking people to be good neighbors.
That sounds like a permit.
I think, I don't want to speak for Brian, but I think he's trying to, I don't like it out of principle, but I think if I'm understanding this correctly, my principles aside, it's probably not a good idea to do this even anyway.
My advice would be that we not require them to register or get a permit or keep track of them. I don't think that's, I think there's likely a preemption issue there.
Okay, all right, good.
That's all that.
Yes, it does.
Okay, it says, and then I made a note of some of the other suggestions for what should be in the body of the policy, so I think we have the direction we need to bring back the policy.
Dan, let's say we do this at the next meeting, you bring it back to us, and we approve it with limited locations and the different things we discussed. And then a few months later, someone says, there's been an issue at this particular location. How easy is it for us to modify?
Very easy. If the ordinance is harder, that's why we set it up as the policy, because we can adapt to changing circumstances or issues. Through a policy, it's a one meeting change.
So that'd be like if Ed says we should allow it at Corriganville and I say we should not, and then a month later, it'd be easy if Ed felt like changing his mind to change his mind.
Yes, or you changing your mind, yes.
Or for me to change my mind. Okay.
Well, one of the things I want to emphasize in what Brian said here, we have to be careful too about whether there's complaints or not, whether it's originating from the fact that we may be allowing the usage in certain locations, or whether the usage is taking place separate and apart from the locations that we're allowing, because the drone usage that's going on out there doesn't have anything, or I shouldn't say anything, in large part doesn't have to do with whether or not we're going to allow them at these certain locations or not. They're being used, they're being used in different neighborhoods. I mean, people see them from time to time. So we really have to be careful if there are complaints about whether it's attributable to our ordinance or not attributable to our ordinance. That's just one of the things I would caution here, right?
And I get what you're saying, because I haven't seen a larger or smaller amount since the ordinance passed. It's been about the same.
Okay, so I'd ask that the board introduce the ordinance for first reading and direct it.
Question. I think we should have a reading of the title first, and if I have that permission. This is ordinance number 3 amended, an ordinance of the Rancho Senior Recreation and Park District Board of Directors establishing rules and regulations governing the use of parks and facilities and participation in district programs. And then the next item would be a motion to waive further reading of the ordinance and introduce the ordinance for first reading. So if somebody wants to say what I just said, that would really be the
So
easiest.
moved.
Do I hear a second? I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All right, so do we vote on this, or do we?
Yes. Vote on the ordinance, yes.
Okay, roll call, please.
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Denner?
Dan, I just want to clarify, when does it come back?
July 20th?
Is that outside of this meeting, if I vote yes on this, could we change the date, or could you change the date if needed?
Yes, it can come back at a different meeting.
Yes.
That's right. It just has to be at least 5 days, but there's no end date.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray?
Aye.
Chair O'Brien?
Yes.
That motion carries with unanimous vote.
And then there was the other direction?
The other one was item 2, to direct staff to develop the policy with the direction provided by the board.
I'll move to direct staff to develop a policy regarding drone usage for consideration by the board at a future meeting.
I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Denner?
I'm voting yes because I see it as an improvement, although I didn't get my way on the permit issue. The rest of it was an improvement, so I appreciate the work of the board on it. Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray?
Aye.
Chair O'Brien?
Yes.
That motion carries with unanimous vote.
Okay. I'm going to call a 10-minute recess. It's 8:07. We would reconvene at 8:17.
Chair, if I could, I'd like to suggest some reordering of the agenda a bit.
Okay.
I would like to suggest that item 9C, new business item 9C, and new business item 9B.
If we're back in session,
Okay, we're back in session.
I'll start over. I'd like to suggest that item 9C and item 9D be moved on the agenda to follow item 13.
Okay.
That's
9D
okay with
isn't
the
going. Okay. All right, so we will postpone those until after the closed session. Reconvene out of the closed session.
And then we'll come back into open session, consider those
So
two
it's
items.
C and D only?
Correct.
Okay, we can do that. Okay. All right, we're back in session. Item 9, new business, 9A, adoption of preliminary district operation capital improvement budget for fiscal year 2022 and 23.
I have a very brief PowerPoint for the public. So Chair and Board, the board held a workshop in May, reviewed and provided some direction regarding the preliminary budget. Those changes, as directed by the board, have been made and are included in the budget that's before you for recommended adoption. Just got a few items we're going to go through here. This is our kind of agenda for this evening. This is the proposed summary level of the adopted budget. You can see all of the funds are balanced with revenues and expenditures, and this reflects the board's prior direction. The budget in detail is included in the staff report for the meeting. This is the sheet where we show the balanced budget and changes to the general fund, and also includes the additional items that staff is recommending we include in the budget. These are the items that the board had previously reviewed in the workshop. This is a list of the appropriated capital projects that is similar. We've added the Trailhead kiosk to the budget based on direction from the board at the last meeting. Other than that, the list is consistent with what the board had previously reviewed. This is the list of capital improvement projects that are recommended for appropriation in the Oak Park area of the district. This is the list of capital projects that are recommended for the golf course for appropriation in the fiscal year 22-23 proposed budget. Following tonight, the budget process continues. So you're adopting a preliminary budget tonight. We conduct public hearings on the budget. The first one will be at the July 20th meeting in Simi Valley. Then we'll have a public hearing in Oak Park as a part of the board's meeting in the Oak Park community. And then approval of the final budget is scheduled for the first meeting in October. That concludes staff's report, and we'd recommend that the board review and adopt the district's preliminary operating and capital improvement budget for fiscal year 2022-23.
Okay, anyone have any questions on this budget? No questions? I have one question. Exhibit A on page, it's General Fund 10.
Okay.
It's Exhibit A, yes, Exhibit A. We're talking about the supplemental budget Woolsey Fire Damage General Fund number 10. Beginning, we have the estimated actual budget for last year. We have the proposed budget. Ending balance, proposed budget 2022 and 23. Ending balance is like $3.75 million. Is that after we paid for everything, including the lagoon?
Let me take a look at that real quick. Give me 1 second here to find the right page.
It's page,
Yes.
supplemental Woolsey Fire.
Correct, that's the estimate for now.
Okay, do we have plans for that money, or do we have to give it back?
That's it. It's built into your capital improvement budget, some of the use of those monies. But after we complete the fire projects and they're all closed out and we settle out with insurance and FEMA and all those things, we will be bringing back a discussion of those remaining funds and how they're proposed to be used.
Okay. So this is just
It'll
fire.
probably be a part of next year's budget, I would guess.
All right.
So we're not appropriating any of that. It'll be there, and then we'll come back and have a discussion about that after all the fire projects are done.
Okay. I was going to suggest something like using it for kind of increased fire resiliency or something.
Right.
I don't know. Okay. That was my question. Anybody else have questions? Any public comment? Okay, who'd like to make a motion?
Yes, question from
Yeah.
Harry Medved. What are trailhead kiosks? Can you just describe what those kiosks will look like?
I'll describe it.
Are they brochures? Are they signs? What
Again, this is public. We got to be orderly here. So if the board would like to answer the question, we can.
Harry, when we get to board comments, I'll describe it.
You should ask if there's any other public comments.
Harry, do you have more comment other than the question?
No, sorry, just a question.
Okay. Is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to comment on the budget item?
Okay. Harry, does somebody want to answer Harry's question? Or?
So Harry, I propose to put that in the budget. A kiosk is the trailhead sign, and most of the time they're brown, and it has warning signs on it, like lock your car, watch out for rattlesnakes, watch out for coyotes or mountain lions, that type of stuff. And some of them are in disrepair, some of them are aging or are falling over, and some of them just generally, I think they can be more inviting to the public while still maintaining the public safety aspect of it, using a current trail guide or other resources we have to put a sign that directs and welcomes the public to their trails.
And I would add, we do not have any specific design put together at this point.
Okay, great, thank you.
If you go hiking in any other communities and you see trailhead signs that you like, when we get to that much later, please share those with me or other board members.
Okay, any other questions, comments from the public? Anybody in Zoom? Okay, who'd like to make a motion?
I'll move that the board adopt the attached preliminary district operating and capital improvement budget for fiscal year 2022-23.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call please.
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Dennert?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray?
Aye.
Chair O'Brien?
Aye.
That motion carries with a unanimous vote.
Okay, and
Chair, we're gonna go to 9E now.
we're not doing.
Oh, I'm sorry, 9B, you're correct.
Then we'll skip to item,
Yeah.
okay. 9B, approval of resolution number 2037, establishing the 2022-23 appropriations limitation in accordance with Article 8B of the Constitution of the State of California.
Ms. Pennington will provide staff's report.
Thank you. Proposition 4, known as the GAN spending limitation, requires governmental agencies to set appropriation limits each fiscal year. The Department of Finance identifies the change in population and change in per capita personal income for each county to calculate the limitation. The appropriation limitation for fiscal year 22-23 is $23,320,413 based on the first draft of the district's preliminary budget, which was reviewed at the budget workshop on May 11th, 2022. The amount to be appropriated is $18,426,100, which is approximately 79% of the amount allowed. So at this time, staff is recommending the board approve the resolution 2037, establishing the limit as $23,320,413 for fiscal year 22-23.
Questions? Public comment, either in person or on Zoom? Okay, who'd like to make the motion?
I'll move approval. Staff recommendations.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, roll call.
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Dennert?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray?
Aye.
And Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
That motion carries with a unanimous vote.
Okay, we are now skipping to item 9E. Consideration of, approval of agreement with Carter Romanek Landscape Architects, Inc. for landscape architectural construction design services for Rancho Santa Susana Community Park Phase 4 construction project.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Tom Evans from the Planning and Maintenance Department will present staff's report.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Chair, Directors. Beginning in 1984 through 1992, development plans, permit modifications were issued for the construction of Rancho Santa Susana Community Park, first 3 phases that included the community center building and all parts of the parks as it stands today. In 2015 and 2016, per the community's desire for more active recreational sport venues, the district staff revised its master plan. The revised plan was submitted to the city of Simi Valley for a permit adjustment, which combined all remaining phases of the project into one phase, which is phase 4. The city approved this permit adjustment in 2018. In late 2018, the district solicited consultants for design services for construction documents, and the board awarded a contract to Carter Romanek Landscape Architects on June 7th, 2018. In 2019, while plans were being prepared by Carter Romanek, the district was receiving growing community requests for a larger universal venue that could accommodate more soccer fields, varying sizes that could also be used for large-scale community events. In response to that request, the construction design services agreement with Carter Romanek was suspended in 2019. Beginning in 2021, staff began drawing alternative designs, and in October 2021, 4 alternative conceptual master plans were presented to the board. The board directed staff to design one final conceptual master plan to include small skateboard elements, a small passive open grass area, and overhead solar panels within the parking lot. A final conceptual master plan was presented and approved by the board December 2021. Beginning in February 2022, staff began the process of preparing exhibits and reports to submit to the City of Simi Valley for a plan development permit modification. Based upon city requests and requirements, some of the plan exhibits cannot be completed by staff and will need outside design services. Since Carter Romanek was previously awarded a contract for design services, staff requested an updated proposal from the firm to incorporate the changes reflected on the updated conceptual master plan and to include the plan exhibits to be submitted to the City of Simi Valley. A proposal was received in the amount of $234,750. Carter Romanek, landscape architect, is an experienced firm with many of their projects being done for public agencies. They have done several projects for us over the past 20 years. They include Coyote Hills Park, the Oak Park Community Center, Vista del Arroyo Park, and they actually worked on 2 projects for me, which was Big Sky Park and Chumash Park. So the board action request is to authorize the district manager to execute an agreement with Carter Romanek Landscape Architects to provide landscape architectural construction design services for the Rancho Santa Community Park Phase 4 construction project in the amount of $234,750 with an additional reimbursable reprographic allowance of $2,000. That concludes my staff report. Any questions?
Okay. Questions?
Where are we with volleyball and basketball as far as how many courts each for each of those?
We're at 4 volleyball, lit sand volleyball courts, and we have 1 full court basketball, lit.
And the skate features are still part of the plan?
Yeah.
Do they have a time estimate on preparation of their plans?
Well, I did from an estimate since they were doing the last round before we suspended their agreement. We were allowing it about 6 months.
About 6 months?
Yeah, 6 months. And so we're going through the City of Simi Valley submittals, the exhibits and plan, and they will help us with that for the first part of it, help me. And that's probably going to be in several months before we get that submitted.
I mean, the processing time?
For the city.
With the city.
Right, and once we're approved by the city, then Carter Romanek would start their construction document.
Right, but will they go through a formal review process at the city, like a DAC? And
I'm not sure about I don't think the DAC, I haven't heard that yet.
Okay.
With the case planner. And so it should go relatively like the last time where we had administrative action and we had a public hearing, but it was at an administrative level. So we should get through it.
Okay, any other questions? Any comment from the public on this item, Zoom or otherwise? You see anyone?
Any public comment from anybody on the Zoom?
Okay, all right, who'd like to make a motion?
For board discussion, I'm open to naming it part of for a former board member. I know that normally we wait till somebody that is retired. Speak about Mark Johnson. He may or may not be retired, we'll find out, but if he is retired, when it comes to it, I'm open to naming part of the facility to remember his contributions to the Park District.
Okay, great idea.
I will move approval of staff's recommendation to authorize the district manager to execute an agreement with Carter Romanek Landscape Architects to provide landscape architectural construction design services for the Rancho Santa Susana Community Park Phase 4 construction project in the amount of $234,750 with an additional reimbursement reprographic allowance of $2,000.
I'll second.
All right, roll call, please.
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Dennert?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray?
Aye.
Chair O'Brien?
Yes.
That motion carries with unanimous vote.
All right, now item 9F. Consideration by board of appointing Brian Hamlet as district council.
I'll take that one. First thing I like about Brian is his first name. Brian joined our firm in 2008, so he's been with Burke Williams for some 14 years. He's been practicing law since 2000. I was appointed as your district counsel back in 2009. However, due to some scheduling issues, I am not going to be able to serve in that position any longer. However, Brian is ready, willing, and able to provide that service for you. You do have in your packet the agenda for Brian, and I'm going to read through the whole thing right now. No, I'm not going to do that. I'll just hit the highlights here that Brian has attended meetings of your board before, so you've seen him here before you, advising you previously. He's also made presentations to the Oak Park Committee on the Brown Act a couple of times. He also serves as a legal advisor to the Planning Commission for the City of Camarillo. So I believe that Brian has the necessary experience and skills to serve as your district counsel, and the recommended action would be to motion to appoint Brian Hamlet as the district counsel for the Rancho Simi Recreation Park District, and I'm certainly available to answer questions.
Okay. Any questions from anyone?
We gotta make sure we're saying your name correctly. Brian Hamlet.
That's correct.
Are you just being kind, or is that?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
It's Hamlet. You say the B, but you don't dwell on it.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I'll move to appoint Brian Hamlet as the district counsel for the Rancho Simi Recreation and Park District. And as part of my motion, I would like to thank this Brian for his years of service to our district.
Thank you. It's been an honor to serve you for the last 12 plus years, and I'm certain that Brian will continue with that good service for you.
I'll second that. I'll second the whole thing, including the appreciation. We'll miss you, but I know Brian will be great.
So with that, Chair, now may be the appropriate time before we, actually, let's do the vote, and then
Okay.
we get a little presentation from Mr. Pierce.
Okay, great. Let's do a roll call.
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Dennert?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gray?
Aye.
Chair O'Brien?
Yes.
That motion carries with unanimous vote.
Okay, now,
Yeah, on behalf of the board, Brian, and the district, the staff, and our residents, we want to thank you for your, I've got it at 13 years, but you said 12 plus, so somewhere around there. But we want to thank you for your service. You've been instrumental for the last 13 years in keeping the district in good standing. Brian was heavily involved in the transaction when we moved in, sold the old property and moved into this building.
I was
very
going to say
involved
that.
legally.
I mean, it was,
Yeah.
his help was enormous. And
Correct. He's been
really,
very,
we had many offers, and we had negotiating to do, and Brian was very helpful.
our open space acquisitions, I think Alamos Canyon, Runkle, Tapo Canyon, Brian's led those efforts among a host of other contractual projects and other things. So thank you, Brian, for your service to the district. And I've got a little something for you to remember us by. I'll have the chair present this to you.
Well, you didn't have to go to all this trouble, Dan.
okay.
Right on behalf of the board, the staff, and I present that as a certificate of appreciation for 13 years or 12 plus.
You take the photo?
Oh.
If we wait until November, it'll be an even 13.
Behind you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations, Brian.
I will display it prominently in my office. Thank you very much.
And welcome, Brian.
And I was going
Yes,
to, I was
welcome,
going to step down now so that the
your new district council can take my chair. You lost my name already. The seat's not even cold.
At least when you just crossed out the last name.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. Well, thank you very much. I'm honored to take the position. Again, thank you very much. I will try to live up to Mr. Perry's legacy because they are large shoes to fill.
Yes, they are.
Well, the district changed a lot during that 13 years.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
We also have cake, but we already took a break, so maybe we'll save the cake for closed session.
Okay.
Yeah, and Brian can get a piece now.
Yeah, that's right. We're doing it for session. Very good. Okay. Item 10, written communications of note.
Staff has none.
Didn't we have a letter that was supposed to be read into the, we didn't have a letter that was supposed to be read into the record. Okay, never mind. I guess not.
You said at the beginning of the meeting there's a letter you're going to read into the record.
There's something about a letter?
Oh, that was the drones.
Oh, okay.
Right.
We're done with drones, okay. Never mind. We don't have
This
to.
will be a part of the record, though, yes.
Okay, all right. Item 11, reports by board members. Director Avila.
I have none.
Okay. Director Dennard.
Juneteenth is coming up, and I would like that we celebrate with our community as a federal holiday. The Juneteenth flag, which I brought with me, it's a beautiful flag. Hold it in the correct way. And the reasoning behind it, it's red, white, and blue, is it's celebrating the end of slavery in the United States. Slavery ended with the Civil War when Union troops entered Texas, and that's what ended slavery. So when we celebrate Juneteenth, we're celebrating the end of slavery and the victory of the Union over the Confederacy and the emancipation. So I'm looking forward that we celebrate with our community. The colors of it are red, white, and blue. But I know those Facebook posts sometimes we don't talk about it much, but members of our community see those and it reflects upon our values. I did an Eagle Scout walk with Cole Schulman. His fundraiser was to take a walk, and he actually mapped out the course and made us walk it. It wasn't just, I thought it'd be a lot shorter. I thought it was take a quick lap around Coyote Park a few times, but he really planned it out, and he's planning to improve a trail with mile markers along the trail. So I was really proud of him for all the work and the community members that showed up for that. I attended Rotary, and at Rotary I mentioned that we have the Trail Challenge. I folded some extra if any staff members would like one tonight, or fellow board members. And I folded it, my daughter Rory did. But we have the trail guide, the normal trail guide, but the staff put together a trail hiking challenge. You hike certain trails and take some notes, and then you can be entered into a raffle for prizes. Now obviously prizes don't normally go to board members. I can't be a part of the medallion hunt anymore. Or staff members, so I'm going to round up a couple prizes for any staff member that would like to do it. So if any staff member wants to do it, maybe I'll buy them lunch or dinner or something so they can participate too. I did a Corriganville cleanup with Rotary. I mentioned I spoke at Rotary and handed those out. And then right afterwards they mentioned they're doing a Corriganville cleanup and looked around, who wants to come? So they did a good job. We removed graffiti, some people tagged up Corriganville. We cleared some brush and then painted some benches at Camp Rotary. And they got it all done in 2 hours before it got too hot.
Wow.
It was a pretty large group and they did a good job. I spoke at Pride and at Duck Pond. And at Pride I shared the message that you belong in our parks and that we're inclusive and we want people here. And it was a really good gathering of the community there. And then I've seen some communities celebrate 4th of July with drones. And I just encourage you to watch videos. They put on a laser light show. So if there ever comes a time where someone stops us from doing fireworks with fireworks, well, we always like celebrating the 4th of July, so there's options out there for that. That's it for me.
Okay. Director Freeman.
I had, along with Director O'Brien, Ventura County Special Districts Association, and an incredible presentation by the Port District.
that's
5
good.
billion with a B bananas a year come in. I mean, it's a lot of bananas, but I mean, it is rated number 10 in the nation for ports. And not only that, environmentally, it's one of the top. They've made some incredible environmental adjustments to the port, and they've been recognized for that. We also had Strathern, and we went over all the maintenance issues and projects and events that are scheduled. I had the opportunity at the Simi Valley Community Council President's Breakfast, which honors volunteers from various organizations. And the Park District owner, Linda Bosley, is president of the Strathern Historical Park. And there were about 100 people there, and all of these groups that recognize volunteers, a particular volunteer. And it really, it struck me how it's what Simi Valley is all about. I mean, we have an incredible volunteer community, and it really showed that morning with all of the different organizations. And Linda was very honored to be part of that. I also want to say that some friends of mine were working at Rancho Santa Sue for the polls, and they were so complimentary of our staff at Rancho Santa Sue. They both said the staff was so helpful, and with all the people, they had about 300 come in all at once, and everything, the staff was really just great. So if you could pass that on to the staff at Rancho Santa Sue, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Gray?
Yeah, I'll keep mine fairly short. I also attended Pride, and Director Denner did a great job spreading the message. It was a good event. And then besides that, I did hear back from a resident who had issues at the Estern Park with the softball fields on Thursday nights, still having the issue of handicap spots being taken by people without placards. And there, I guess that individual had further discussions with park rangers who felt helpless in the situation. I'm not sure if this could have been an instance before we met, but I would hope we can reiterate to the rangers and hopefully pass on to PD to please enforce parking regulations and making sure that all of our citizens do have proper access to our parks. That has been an ongoing issue on Thursday nights now. But that concludes my report.
Dan, our park rangers could give tickets for that, correct?
We're not allowed to enforce the handicap parking like that, so we can change our process and we've got to develop an administrative citation process. However, there's a cost to us to do that, so you weigh that cost versus the level of benefits. So Teresa and I actually have a meeting next week to talk about potentially doing that in our parks, where we'd give our park rangers the authority to give administrative cites for parking. We currently, under the law, or the way we're structured right now, we don't have the ability to do that.
So currently that'd be a park ranger could call the police department if they wanted to?
Yes, we have put out the request to the police department to monitor that scenario. I find it a little discouraging that the folks that are there, and we ask them to move their cars, won't do it. So I'd like to explore that a little bit more.
It's disturbing.
Yeah. So Teresa and I are working on evaluating the ability for the rangers to have a little bit more enforcement authority over parking in our parking lots.
Okay. Well, I had, with Director Freeman, I had special districts, and that was a really fascinating presentation. I was surprised that avocados were an import, not an export. I would have expected us to be exporting them, but apparently not.
BMWs.
Yeah, that's true. And I also did Historical Society, also with Director Freeman. I also, my cousin's husband is a musician, and I hear that the Ventura County Concert Band has lost their venue. They used to do 4 concerts a year at the high school in Ventura High School. something to do with COVID, I think. So they're looking for a new venue, and I was wondering if there's any way we can make that work with our traveling stage. There's 50 members of this band, but they do 4 concerts a year, one on Veterans Day, one in January, March, and June.
They're all in Ventura, the city of
They're all
Ventura?
in the county of Ventura.
Yeah, but not, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but not necessarily city of Ventura. They'd have to travel here, or we'd have to work something out. Is that even remotely doable for us to?
It is remotely doable.
It is.
It's going to, because they're gonna have to transport it, pay for our staff to set it up, so there'll be a cost to it.
Yeah, I would expect there would be.
And then obviously the timing, it sounds like they're doing it on the same days we may be using it too, so.
There's that too, so that's, but if it's
So
something.
if you wanna have her call me, I can.
I'll have her call you, that's what I'll do. It occurred to me when, during public comment, when we were talking about kids and golf. Disc golf is nothing like regular golf, is that correct?
Well, no.
Mostly no.
Same concept, entirely different.
Okay, all right, never mind then. I was thinking, like, we do more of those, they would be more economical than trying to build a new golf course or something. Okay, never mind, forget I said anything to you. That concludes my report.
I didn't know if you were asking like the rules of play or.
Yeah, they're all different, okay.
A lot of the same idea, get into the object with as minimal strokes or throws as possible.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I was not a jock in high school, I was a theater nerd, so I don't know this stuff. Okay, item 12, report by district manager.
No issues of significance for COVID or the skate park. Remind the board that we have the Oak Park Lagoon groundbreaking this Friday at 5:30. I believe that Mr. Gray is going to serve as the lead for that event. So thank you, Director Gray, and anybody else that would like to go will be over there. The turtle relocation is scheduled for June 30th from 3:30 to dusk. That involves our staff and some volunteers from the community gathering up the turtles to take to a safe location during the construction.
Josh, I have 2 questions. One is, are you going to be there? And the second one is, do you think you could catch more turtles than me?
I have to see about making the timing. I do believe I can catch more turtles than you.
Care to make it interesting?
For the record, last time I caught 0 turtles. But I understand the water's going to be lower this time.
I think I can beat 0.
I mentioned at the last meeting that we've had quite an uptick in vandalism. That continued last weekend, so the staff and I have put together a plan to try to locate the folks that are doing that, and we're also coordinating with the police department on that, so your staff is working on that. We are doing an extra little bit of dogs off leash education in Oak Park. We've had several complaints over the last 6 months and a couple pretty significant lately, so we're going to do some extra signage, some extra patrol, and some extra messaging in Oak Park regarding dogs off leash. If you hear about that, the gym floor, we got 3 quotes to replace the floor. We worked with our insurance company and we got the okay yesterday to move forward with starting to do the contract to replace the gym floor at Rancho Santa Sue. If the board will recall, I think a few weeks ago, we got a request for some changes to the pickleball venue at Rancho Simi Park. Zach and I went and reviewed those. They look pretty reasonable, so I'll be working with the maintenance staff to potentially implement those suggestions. I think they were good ones. Water restrictions. The staff and I met with the city water staff yesterday. We are going to water our athletic fields 3 days a week, which is more than we got the exemption. The golf course will be allowed, we're going to cut back everywhere, but we still get to water. The golf course will be able to, at this point, to maintain the course at a level that's sufficient for play. Our active park space, I'll call it, not necessarily athletic fields, but active park space, we're going to water 2 days a week at this point. And then our non-active park space, or our ornamental space, the state yesterday just said but there's a no watering policy for institutional uses for ornamental turf. So we are going to be not watering ornamental. We are going to see, and you can already start to see it, various areas in town. The parks will get a little browner, but they'll still have water on them, and then that non-active space will be totally browned out, so to speak. So that's where we are on that. And then
What would be non-active space?
what's that?
What would be non-active space?
It would be, say, purely visual. So it's a median. It's an edge of a park where it's maybe a spot of grass that's in a curb. So it would be an area that folks would lay down a blanket or play frisbee. It's just purely, I guess, visually pleasing. Just visually pleasing, but we will be, as part of our effort for getting the exemption for the athletic fields, they've asked us to do our part with the non-active, or basically they call it ornamental. It's just the visual appealing. We have committed to not doing any watering in those areas. And we are also making sure, your staff is also tracking to make sure that everybody else is doing that too, meaning the city themselves and other HOAs and stuff, to make sure that everybody's doing their part, including us. And then finally, Steve Frank is on the cemetery board, and they've got some ideas about the longevity and sustainability of the Pioneer Cemetery. So he set up a meeting to include the county. It's a staff level meeting. County staff, city staff, us, and the cemetery district.
I was invited.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Is it all right if I attend?
If the board's okay with it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Everybody, I guess you're representing the rest of them, so. Yeah. And then, so we'll be attending that next week to have that discussion. So. That concludes my report. Oh no, I've got upcoming meetings. We do not have a meeting on July 6th. We don't have a meeting July 6th, and then we have an Oak Park Committee meeting on July 14th. And then we will have a meeting on July 20th. Softball agreement, not a real heavy agenda on the 20th. We'll have the second reading of the ordinance. And we may, maybe July, August, we'll bring back the item on the motorized vehicles on trails or non-motorized that Elaine had requested come back to the board. That concludes my report. We have no other community meetings other than the Oak Park Committee and the regular Historical Society. And I guess now,
the
Golf
Oak Park
Committee.
Oh yes. The Oak Park Committee, is that going to be on Zoom or in person?
They wanted to continue to do that on Zoom as long as the governor's order was in place, allowing for that. That's what the committee had decided a couple meetings ago. So that will be Zoom only.
Okay, thank you. Item 13, we're going into closed session.
We'll have Mr. Hamlet read the titles for the closed session.
Yes, sir. Let's see. Closed session 13A. Closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Conference with labor negotiator. Agency negotiators are the district manager and director of administration, and the employee organization is the Rancho Simi Recreation and Park District Middle Management Association. Item 13E, closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Conference with labor negotiator. The agency negotiators is the district manager and director of administration. The employee organization is Rancho Simi Employees Association. Item 13C, closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Conference with labor negotiator. The agency negotiator again is the district manager and director of administration. The employee organization is the Maintenance and Ground Association. And lastly, 13D, closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator. The agency negotiator is the district manager, and the employee organization would be the unrepresented employees.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you, Chair. And also note we'll be returning to open session after the closed session for items 9D, to consider item 9C and 9D.
Okay. All right, we're back in open session at 9:16, and we have decided to take C and D and hold a special meeting next week. Should I not report this?
I'm supposed to report it.
I'm sorry.
That's totally all right.
No, go ahead.
You're making my job easier and easier. I'm just reporting that the board in closed session has decided to continue items 9C and 9D to a special meeting next week so that they can hear and vote on all labor negotiations together. The meeting will be noticed at a later date in accordance with the Brown Act.
Okay, thank you. Any other items from anybody? Nope, we're adjourned.